Welcome back, everyone, to the English Prep Podcast. Today, we're diving into something that, well, it can really trip up a lot of test takers in the TOEFL speaking section.
Oh, absolutely.
Even people with pretty good English, It's managing your time.
It's so true. You see so many learners, their IDs are great, pronunciation's clear, but then they get their scores back and they're, well, disappointed.
Yeah.
And often when you really look into it, the clock was the real enemy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you get this tiny, tiny window. Sometimes it's just, 15 seconds to prepare? And then maybe 45 seconds, maybe 60 seconds to actually speak. It just feels like the blink of an eye when you're under pressure.
It really does. And nerves can make those seconds just evaporate if you don't have a clear plan, a strategy.
Right.
So that's what we want to explore today. Some really practical ways for you to, take control of that time. Because honestly, mastering those few seconds, it can genuinely boost your score. We'll look at planning, structuring your answers so they fit, and crucially, how to actually get a feel for the timing.
Okay, so let's jump right in then. Why is timing such a big deal on this test? You might think, well, aren't they just listening to my grammar, my vocabulary?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But timing is, it's absolutely fundamental. Think of it like this. You could have the most brilliant answer, really insightful, but if you don't deliver it within that time limit,
It doesn't count.
it's almost like it never happened, yeah. It can seriously pull your score down.
That's a sobering thought. It's like, telling a great joke but forgetting the punchline.
Exactly. Or starting a story and then just stopping.
Yeah.
We want to help you avoid those moments. That sudden beep when you're right in the middle of a sentence.
Yeah.
Or that awkward silence when you finish way too early and you're just sitting there thinking, what now?
Okay. So to get a better handle on this,
Mm-hmm.
can we break down how the timing actually works? Because
Right.
there are different question types, right?
Definitely. Yeah, there are a few different speaking tasks, and each one has its own specific time limits. You've got your prep time and you've got your speaking time.
Okay, so let's start with task 1, the independent task. What's the timing situation there?
Right. For that first one, you get a mere 15 seconds to prepare.
15 seconds.
Yeah.
Just 15. And then you have 45 seconds to actually speak your answer. The big challenge there is often just, thinking up your own reasons, your own examples, right there on the spot.
15 seconds is barely enough time to read the question and take a breath.
It really doesn't feel like much, no. Which is exactly why having a kind of go-to plan is so vital.
Okay, makes sense. Then you move on to the integrated tasks, right? The ones where you combine reading and listening.
That's right. Tasks 2, 3, and 4.
How does the timing work for those? I seem to remember you get a little bit more prep time.
You do, yeah. For those, you get 30 seconds to prepare, which feels a bit more generous. And then you speak for a full 60 seconds, so a whole minute. Now, the main skill there is synthesizing, taking the key info from the reading, the key info from the listening, and weaving it together concisely within that minute.
So it sounds like for all the tasks, the common thread is making your answer feel complete, like a finished thought within whatever time you're given.
Precisely. It needs to sound finished. And that really comes down to two things. Being aware of your pacing, how long your sentences are taking, maybe we call that micro timing, and also having a good overall structure, the macro timing, so you know where you're going and you wrap it up neatly.
Okay, so let's really hone in on that prep time, especially for task 1. 15 seconds. It still sounds impossible. Do you have a specific method, a technique we can use to make the absolute most of those few seconds?
I do, yeah. And the key is not trying to write out full sentences. Forget that.
Right.
You're aiming for a very basic structure, like the skeleton of your answer. I like to call it the pre-P and link approach.
Pre-P, P-R-E-P.
Yeah.
Like prepare.
Exactly. It's an acronym. It stands for point, reason, example, and then point again, like a quick return to your main point.
Okay, walk me through that. Point.
Point. That's your direct answer to the question. One clear sentence. Then, reason. Briefly, why do you think that? Jot down a keyword.
Okay.
Then, example. Think of a quick specific detail or a mini personal story. Again, just a keyword or two to trigger your memory.
Got it.
And finally, point again, just a very short phrase, maybe 5 or 6 words, to restate your main idea and signal you're concluding that thought.
Okay, point, reason, example, wrap up the point. That actually sounds doable in 15 seconds.
Right.
What about the and link part you mentioned?
Ah, right. The link is about having those little transition words ready to go in your mind.
Ah, like connectors.
Exactly. Words like first, because, for instance. So, therefore. The idea is you have these sort of preloaded so you don't stumble trying to think of them while you're speaking under pressure. They help everything flow.
So in those 15 seconds, I'd quickly note down main idea keyword, reason keyword, example keyword, maybe a concluding word, and mentally cue up words like, first of all, or for instance.
You got it. And honestly, with a bit of practice, you can sketch that outline out in maybe 10, 12 seconds,
All right.
which gives you like 3 whole seconds just to breathe, center yourself before you have to start talking.
That's actually a really practical, actionable tip. Okay, so you've prepped. Now you have to speak for those 45 seconds in task 1. How do we structure the actual spoken answer so it fits nicely?
Right, the delivery. Well, a good target for a natural speaking pace is usually somewhere around, say, 120 to 140 words per minute.
Okay.
So if you do the math, in 45 seconds, that gives you roughly 90 words.
90 words, okay.
And a really helpful way to think about delivering those 90 words is to aim for about 5 sentences.
5 sentences.
Yeah, roughly 5 sentences, with each one being around, say, 18 words long, give or take.
5 sentences, about 18 words each. That gives us a clear target. So what would be in those 5 sentences? What's the structure?
Okay, a good solid structure could look like this. Sentence 1, your direct answer, your main point, around 18 words.
Right.
Sentence 2, your first reason, maybe starting with first of all, or the main reason is, again, aim for 18 words.
Okay.
Sentence 3, your example, maybe a quick personal anecdote, for instance, about 18 words. Sentence 4, you could add a second reason or maybe just a bit more detail using a linker like moreover or besides that around 18 words.
Gotcha.
And sentence 5, you bring it back, restate your point using a concluding phrase like, that's why, or so for these reasons, your final 18 words or so.
Okay, so it's super clear. Point, reason 1, example for reason 1, maybe reason 2 or more detail, and then conclusion, restated point.
Exactly. And following a structure like that really helps you avoid just wandering off topic.
Yeah, rambling.
Yeah. And that final concluding phrase, like, that's why, mordiferous, it clearly signals to the examiner that you've finished your thought properly. Plus, aiming for roughly equal sentence lengths helps you keep a steady pace.
So you don't rush the beginning and then run out of steam.
Precisely. Or the opposite, talking too slowly at the start and then having to rush at the end.
That makes a ton of sense. Now, you mentioned those transition words, the linking phrases, a couple of times. How vital are they for timing, specifically?
Oh, they're incredibly important for timing, not just for fluency. They act like little signposts for your listener, but they also buy you a microsecond.
Okay.
They give you that tiny pause to gather your next thought while keeping the flow going. They help you move smoothly from one idea to the next without those awkward time-wasting gaps.
Can you give us a few more examples, maybe grouped by function? Like, what can we use to start or add an idea?
Sure. So to introduce your first idea, you've got, to begin with, first of all, my main point is, things like that. To add another idea, moreover, furthermore, in addition, also, besides that.
Right. Examples.
For examples, for instance. For example, to illustrate, take the case of. A good example is...
Contrasting ideas.
For contrasts. However, on the other hand, conversely, in contrast, but...
And wrapping up.
Concluding, therefore... So, as a result, in conclusion, to sum up, so that's why, in short.
That's a really useful toolkit to have. You also mentioned practicing synonyms for these. Why bother with that? Why not just memorize one for each function?
Well, using a variety makes your speech sound much more natural, less formulaic or robotic. Even under pressure, if you have a couple of options in your head for, say, adding an idea, you're less likely to just keep saying also, which doesn't sound great.
Good point. Okay, so we've got prep strategies, speaking structure, transition words. What are some classic mistakes people make with their pacing? Things that mess up their timing?
Oh, there are a few common pitfalls. One big one is getting lost in the example.
Telling too long a story.
Exactly. Spending way too much time describing the situation, giving all this background detail, and then either running out of time or forgetting to clearly link it back to the main reason.
So the tip there is...
Keep the example concise. 1, maybe 2 sentences max. Then immediately say something like, so this shows that, or, and that illustrates why, to connect it back explicitly.
Okay, keep examples tight and link them back.
Right.
What's another common pacing issue?
Another one is introducing a completely new idea right at the very, very end, like with 2 seconds left.
Yeah, that feels abrupt.
It makes the whole answer feel unfinished, rushed. To avoid that, try to consciously use one of those concluding phrases we talked about, like in short, or so basically maybe around the 40-second mark.
All right.
It acts as a signal to yourself and the examiner that you're wrapping up.
Like putting the landing gear down on a plane.
That's a perfect analogy, yes. Another related issue is just telling long, rambling anecdotes that don't seem to have a clear point or the connection isn't obvious. When you're prepping your example, even just mentally, think, who? What happened? Why is this relevant? Try to boil it down to its essence, maybe 10, 15 words in your mind.
Keep it super focused.
Yeah.
Okay. What about physical pacing issues? Like speaking way too fast out of nerves or even running out of breath?
Yeah, those happen. If you find yourself rushing, consciously try to slow down. Focus on articulating each word clearly. It might feel slow to you, but it probably sounds fine.
Okay.
For running out of breath, remember to use those transition phrases as natural pause points. Take a tiny breath after, first of all, or, for instance, just a quick inhale, and try breathing in through your nose, not just your mouth. It tends to be calmer and deeper.
Those are really practical tips. Okay, so how do we actually practice this timing thing? How do we build that internal clock?
Right, practice is key. You need drills. One I really like is called Feel the Seconds.
Feel the seconds.
Yeah, pick any topic, start talking, and try without looking at a timer to stop exactly when you think 45 seconds is up. Then check the timer. See how close you were. Doing this repeatedly really helps you internalize what 45 seconds actually feels like.
I like that. It sounds like it would really calibrate your internal timer. What else?
Another good one is the 2-cycle P-rep. Take a task 1 prompt, answer it once, and deliberately let yourself go over the 45 seconds. Just talk until you feel you've said everything.
Okay.
Then immediately answer the same prompt again, but this time be really strict about hitting that 45-second mark. Force yourself to be concise.
Oh, interesting. So you experience being too long, then practice cutting it down.
Exactly. It helps you learn what you can realistically cover and how to edit yourself on the fly. You can also do a self-scoring grid.
Okay.
Record your practice answers, then listen back and score yourself, maybe on a simple 1 to 3 scale for things like clarity, coherence, and did I finish on time? Be honest. Then try again until you're consistently getting good scores, like maybe 8 or 9 out of 9.
So active self-assessment.
Definitely. And one more, shadow and shrink. Find a good sample answer online, maybe from a native speaker. First, just try to repeat it exactly as they say it, mimicking their pace and intonation. That's shadowing. Then try to retell the same information, cover the same key points, but using fewer words, maybe aim for like 70% of their word count. This really forces you to practice being concise.
Shadow and shrink. I like that name. These drills sound really effective. Now let's talk mindset, because that ticking clock can be seriously stressful. How do we manage the nerves around timing?
That's huge, yeah.
Yeah.
The mental game is critical. First, remember, calm and steady wins the race here. Rushing usually leads to mistakes and makes you sound flustered.
Easier said than done sometimes.
True. So during that prep time, especially if you feel panic rising, try that box breathing technique. It's simple. Inhale slowly for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 4 seconds, exhale slowly for 4 seconds, hold empty for 4 seconds. Repeat that cycle 2 or 3 times. It really can physically calm your nervous system.
Box breathing. Okay, I'll have to try that. What else for mindset?
In your prep notes, stick to just those 3 or 4 keywords we talked about. Don't try to rate sentences. You'll then feel pressured to read perfectly. Keywords are just triggers, less pressure.
Right, less to process.
Exactly. And then, right before you click record or start speaking, take one final deep breath and maybe use a little mental cue or a positive trigger phrase. Something simple like, okay, steady and clear, or I've got this. Just something to ground you.
Positive self-talk. I like it. Okay, could you maybe pull all this together for us? Give us an example of what a good, well-timed 45-second answer might actually sound like for task 1.
Sure. Let's use a common prompt. Do you agree or disagree that universities should require students to take physical education classes? So a well-structured, well-timed answer might go something like this. I strongly agree that universities should require physical education classes. First of all, regular exercise is proven to lower stress, which is, really crucial when students are juggling heavy academic loads. For instance, my own university added a weekly yoga session last semester, and student surveys showed a 20% drop in reported anxiety. Besides reducing stress, mandatory PE helps build lifelong healthy habits because students learn different workouts they can actually continue after they graduate. That's why I believe PE isn't just some optional extra, but really a core part of a good higher education.
Okay, yeah, I can hear the structure there. Point, reason, example, another benefit, conclusion, and it felt like it flowed well.
Exactly. It hits the points, uses transitions like, first of all, for instance, besides, that's why. And if you timed it, it should land pretty close to that 45-second mark.
That's a fantastic illustration. Now, to really embed these skills, say someone has a week before their test, what would a focused, timing-centric study plan look like?
Okay, a focused week plan. Let's see. Monday. Spend maybe 20 minutes just practicing creating those PRP outlines. Do like 5 different prompts, just the outlining part.
Okay.
Tuesday, record yourself. Do 3 full task 1 answers, timing yourself strictly, maybe 30 minutes total.
Right.
Wednesday, drill those transitional phrases. Spend 15 minutes just saying them aloud, maybe trying different ones for the same function so they feel natural coming out of your mouth.
Get them into muscle memory.
Exactly. Thursday, shift to integrated skills practice. Find a short article and a related audio clip, lots of practice materials online. Take notes, then practice summarizing the connection in 60 seconds. Do that twice, maybe 30 minutes.
Okay.
Friday, time for a mini mock test. Do maybe 1 task 1 and 1 integrated task back to back under timed conditions. About 20 minutes.
Simulate the pressure?
Yep. Saturday, review day. Listen back to your Tuesday and Friday recordings. Look at your Monday outlines. Score yourself using that grid idea. Be critical. What worked? What needs fixing? Maybe 20, 30 minutes?
And Sunday?
Sunday. Rest. But maybe some light English listening, a podcast, a movie. Just keep your ears tuned in, but no stressful time to practice.
Okay.
And if you follow a plan like that, maybe not just for 1 week, but for, say, 3 or 4 weeks leading up to the test, that kind of consistent, focused practice really helps make effective pacing feel, well, almost automatic.
That's a really concrete, helpful schedule. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, could you give us maybe a super quick cheat sheet, the absolute key takeaways for mastering TOEFL speaking timing?
Sure thing. Quick reference. 1, use PPrep in link for that 15-second prep. Point, reason, example, point, plus transition words in mind.
Got it.
2, for the 45-second independent task, aim for about 5 sentences, roughly 18 words each. Structure is key.
5 by 18. Okay.
3, for the 60-second integrated tasks, focus on summarizing the key points from reading and listening concisely and showing the connection.
RLCO, reading, listening, connection, maybe opinion, conclusion.
Something like that, yeah. Keep it structured. 4, have those essential transition phrases ready. First of all, for instance, therefore. 5, use that box breathing or another calming technique if you feel anxiety creeping in during prep or speaking.
Breathe.
Yes. And 6, if you finish a bit early, say 3-4 seconds left, it's okay to add a very brief concluding sentence like, so overall, I think.
Yeah.
But never introduce a totally new idea right at the end. Better to finish slightly early and cleanly than rush a new point.
That's a fantastic, concise summary. It really drives home that it's about speaking strategically, isn't it? Not just faster.
That's the core message. It's strategic speaking.
Yeah.
Having a plan, using those transitions effectively, practicing until you develop that internal sense of timing. That's what transforms the speaking section from something scary into, well, an opportunity to really show what you can do with English.
Well, thank you so much. These insights and strategies have been incredibly valuable. I think anyone listening who's preparing for the TOEFL will find this really helpful for tackling the clock.
My pleasure. And just remember, everyone, consistent practice using these kinds of focus drills really is the key. It makes these techniques feel much more natural when the pressure's on.
Absolutely. So we hope this deep dive into timing strategies on the English Prep Podcast has given you some concrete tools. Keep practicing those PREP outlines, those transitions. Feel those seconds you'll get there. You'll be well on your way to hitting your target score.